Hi, welcome to the Independent Thinking Children's Book Festival, brought to you in association with Sue Atkins. And I'm here today with Lesley Berrington and her amazing little book, one of a series, A Day at the Farm. So, Lesley, welcome to the book festival. If you can just introduce yourself a little bit, tell us a bit about your background and how you got into writing generally.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Lesley Berrington, and I'm the former owner of Stepping Stones Daycare Limited in Lincoln, which was 3 nurseries and 2 kids clubs. So I'm nursery nurse qualified, and when I owned my nurseries, I was looking for some inclusive children's stories that featured disability, and I couldn't find anything. And so after doing some more research, I decided that there was a massive gap in the market and that I could create my own stories. My daughter was 5 at the time, so it was perfect age to sort of have days out with her, and all my stories about going for days out with your family and friends.
Lovely. And this idea about the disabilities, you said what I like about your book is that you don't draw attention to it. It's just an ordinary child just happens to walk in a different way or hear a different way than other children.
Absolutely.
So just to explain that just a little bit more.
Yeah, that was really important to me, because when I started looking for other books to see if I could find any that featured disability, there were a few. I found a Topsy and Tim book, and it was about the children going to a park, a playground, and they met a child in a wheelchair, and it discussed why the child was in a wheelchair, and I really didn't want that. I wanted the characters to have their own little personalities, and it to be more important about who this character was, so they're not defined by their disability. So there was also books that sort of made disability a superpower, so that they suddenly had a wheelchair that could fly or something like that, which is fine, but it's not what I wanted in my story. I just wanted it to be incidental so that children are accepted for who they are.
And that's nice. One of our associates in Independent Thinking, Jane Hewitt, grandson is limb different, and she sort of flagged this up about, did anybody know anybody who's got any books with children with limb difference or any disability where it's not the thing that the book is centered around. She just wanted it to be you just happen to be a normal part of children's life, and some children are like that and some children are like that. So,
yeah, exactly. And the sad thing is that I wrote, because it's a series of books, the first one I wrote is 15, 16 years ago now, and I really thought that the competition would have caught up with me by now and that there'd be loads of books out there, similar to mine, but unfortunately there aren't. And the feedback I get from a lot of teachers who I come into contact with on Twitter is that, wow, this is so new and different. And I'm thinking, well, it's not really very new to me. But yeah, it's quite sad that, in 2021, people are still saying, well, this is, new and different. It should be just normal in every child's bookcase, shouldn't it, really?
Yeah, it should be. Why do you think people aren't catching up in that way? What do you think is the issue there, the problem?
Well, I think the educators, teachers, health visitors, etc., all know the value of books like this. I think it's quite difficult to get it over just to the mainstream, because whenever I speak to people about my books, they'll say, oh yes, that's really important for special schools, or they think I'm writing just for a child who's disabled. And I say, well, no, that's not the point. The point is that it's for all children, and it's so important that all children see this, so that they just accept disability. And so, I think we've got a long way to go before mainstream and everyday parents who have a non-disabled child pick up my story, where there's a clear disability there, and say, oh yes, we'll have this for my child. Maybe they look at that and think, this is not for my child because my child doesn't use walking aids or whatever. So unfortunately, I think we've got a long way to go.
And the publishers have a part to play in that. I mean, so I suppose it's a bit chicken and egg. If they feel that parents aren't asking for that, or schools aren't asking for that, they're not going to promote it. But if schools don't know it's available, then they're not going to find it out anyway, are they? It's chicken and egg.
Well, exactly. And it's quite difficult working as just a small independent, because when I had the idea for Hattie and Friends, I looked at going to find publishers, and I just thought I could be trying to do this for years and years, trying to find a publisher, because it's so difficult to get into. And at that time I was just selling my nursery business, so fortunately I had the money to buy the first set of books, and then it's gone from there. But you know, I don't think a lot of publishers do think about it, and they don't think that it's for mainstream. Maybe they don't think they're going to be popular, I don't know.
Well, well done for doing it, for you know, striking out on your own in that way. And if it was that many years ago and it's still in print and still being bought, that's a good sign. We'll hear a little bit about it, and then we'll find out a little bit more about the others in the series. And also I'm really keen to think about if you go into schools and school visits, what the response is from children. But if you just want to read us give us a little taster of A Day at the Farm from your Hattie and Friends series, that'd be great.
So this is from A Day at the Farm, and it's Hattie and Nisha go to the farm with their mummies, and this is when they just arrive at Whitegates Farm. When Hattie got out of the car, she wrinkled her nose up and said, "Ooh, cows and sheep," as she smelt the farmyard smells. "Pooh-wee," agreed Nisha with a chuckle. "Come on, girls, let's go and see what animals we can find," said Hattie's mummy. Off they went to see what animals they could find at the farm. Hattie and Nisha found a big barn with goats, horses, pigs and donkeys. It was very noisy and smelly in there. The baby goats were skipping and jumping around and play fighting with each other. "They're called kids, just like you," Nisha's mummy said. Here's Hattie and Nisha with the donkeys. Hattie and Nisha fed the donkeys some special pellets of food. "Hold your hand flat and let them eat the food from your hand," Nisha's mummy said. The donkeys gobbled up the food quickly. "Oh, that really tickles," giggled Hattie.
Lovely, very well read as well.
Oh, thank you.
I love. I mean, the illustrations are so sort of bright and colourful and happy. What I also like, there's lots going on. There's lots of other little children sort of poking out from round corners, and also the names. You know, Ginger and Pebbles, Pigsy and Pookie, Daisy and Droopy. The names of all the other supporting cast of animals of animals at the farm. So how do teachers respond when you do school visits? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do children and teachers respond when you talk about it without drawing attention to, like, you know, this girl's with crutches? What goes on?
Well, my visits are really about, I title them about being an author. So I'm going into schools and I'm talking to children in Key Stage 1 about being an author. So we don't talk about inclusion right until the very end. So I show the children my original notes in my notebook and talk to them about if they'd like to write stories, maybe they'd like a special notebook to write their stories in. I talk to them about creating a character and where I get my ideas from. I talk to them about working with the illustrator and working with print and design to create it into a book, because of course most authors, their job finishes when they finish writing the story, but because I've then gone on to publish the book, it's all about then creating the book and marketing and selling, which is always good fun when I talk to them about, you know, where shall I sell this book, and they come up with all sorts of great ideas. But yeah, it's all about being an author. And then they have question and answer session, and the schools often have little projects afterwards, like the children writing, depending on their age obviously, if they're older children, creating their own stories of a day at the wherever. But at the end, I do read a story, and then I just ask the children, have they noticed anything about the characters and about any differences? Which is also very interesting, because we go through, you know, well, Hattie's got a pink T-shirt on and Nisha's got a white T-shirt on and all this kind of thing. And eventually, you know, I have to say, well, actually, the difference is that Nisha has a disability, and we talk about that a little bit. But it's really fascinating to see that the children then look and say, oh, yeah, you know, they really hadn't noticed, which is absolutely the point of it.
Yeah.
And it's just lovely.
Because you're not hiding it. I mean, the crutches, the little girl's got a sort of blue and yellow and red. You know, you're not making it subtle, if you like. And the fact that children don't even see it, it's just heartening, really, isn't it? Lovely.
Yes. And it just, you know, it just sort of introduces the idea to them that, oh yes, we've just listened to a story where Hattie and Nisha had a fabulous day at the farm. You know, they hadn't noticed it at all. And then they start to think, oh yeah, but she is a bit different.
Mm. And they end in the book. They end, you know, giving away the ending. They end on the swings in the play park bit, and the fact that, you know, they're just children and they're enjoying it in exactly the same way. I thought that was quite sort of striking as well. When you're on a swing, you know, it doesn't. Your crutches are irrelevant, aren't they? When you're being
well, exactly,
on a tire swing and things.
Yeah, definitely. And in that picture, the crutches are actually on the floor. And she's in the swing, because yeah, it's important to show that, you know, those walking aids, they're not attached to Nisha, you know, they're not part of her. She just needs them a little bit of help to get around, and then yeah, she's on the swing like Hattie is. So
yeah, no, that's nice. That was striking. But what about children in classes who maybe do have crutches or do have other forms of limb difference or other sorts of disability?
Yeah, I haven't actually done any school visits in any special schools. The only thing that I would say is that when I wrote A Day at the Park, this is Toby, and Toby has a cochlear implant, so it's, you know, it's a little bit more subtle because it's quite small. But when I wrote this story, I actually took it into a class where there was a child with a cochlear implant, and he was absolutely, he just couldn't stop smiling. He was so excited that the character in the book was like him, and that was wonderful.
And how did the other children respond to him? Did they sort of look at him and think he's like you in the book? And
well, I think because he was in a mainstream school, you know, you just get used to another child in the class, don't you? And that's the thing about raising awareness of disability. It's not thinking, oh, that's Toby who's deaf. It's just, that's Toby. You know, they just knew that this child in the class had a cochlear implant, so it wasn't a big deal to them, but it was a big deal to him because he'd never seen that in a book before. So that was really exciting.
And do you find, you talked about after your visit, children will then write their own story. You talked to them about story writing. Do you find that children in these stories then start building in children with other issues and differences and disabilities in the stories?
I haven't actually seen that. I've seen more about just how it's inspired their creativity, which is lovely, because, you know, they've come out with so many interesting stories. The Day at the somewhere, which is lovely. Hopefully it's made them think a little bit more about who their characters are. But I suppose I'm still dealing with quite young children who, when you talk to them about writing a story, they're going to write very much from their own experience, and so they may not have come across a child with disabilities. So yeah, okay. So you mentioned the cochlear implant, and there's two other excuse me. There's two other stories as well. So what other disabilities are you covering? Yeah, so the first story that I wrote is A Day at the Zoo, and this is Hattie and George, and George is in a wheelchair. So George uses a wheelchair to get around, and they meet lots of animals at the zoo. And then there's A Day at the Seaside, which is Hattie and Lucy is blind and she uses a cane. So in this story, there's a lot about sounds and texture and smells and tastes. They hear the donkey bells tinkling and they feel the sand warm under their feet and things like that. So hopefully that makes children think about, you know, somebody who is without their sight.
And how did you do sort of research to understand how children with these various disabilities will interact with the world and expect to encounter the world? How do you go about that?
Yeah, when I wrote A Day at the Farm, I suppose A Day at the Zoo, the first one was sort of the easiest one because it was a child using a wheelchair, and you sort of kind of understand the issues there. But when I wrote A Day at the Farm, because I wasn't really sure about the leg braces and walking aids, and also about how to illustrate them, I arranged for a visit to a special school with my illustrator, and we just went and we read them a story, and we just interacted with the children and looked at the different things that children were using, different walking aids and things. And yeah, just research on the internet, really. Because you've just got to make sure that it's accurate, but it's also sensitive to the children.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's that, and not dealing with stereotypes or assumptions
Yeah.
about it. So the research is important.
Yeah.
And any other books in the pipeline? Anything else planned?
I'm not writing any other books at the moment. I've over the years I've done various other things like posters, jigsaws, different things. What I'm working on at the moment is an animation, which is really exciting. Right from the beginning, I thought that Hattie and Friends would make a fantastic television programme. And again, there's nothing on television like Hattie and Friends. So because I've had the time at home through lockdown and everything, I'm not doing any school visits, then it means that I've been able to put an Arts Council application together, and that's gone in at the moment. And hopefully, if I get some money to start off an animation, then that will be the first step. It costs a lot of money, and the first step would just be to work with an animator and create a short clip to just see how it works. But then, yeah, who knows where it will go from there, but that's what I'm concentrating on at the moment.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I'm thinking about, I mean, my children are older now. I don't see that many children's animations these days, but certainly when they were growing up, when I was growing up, there wasn't much in the way of any sorts of differences in the children who are animated.
And there still isn't, unfortunately. No. There is a series that features a character who is autistic, that's great. But physical disabilities, like in Hattie and Friends, there isn't anything like that.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. So anybody watching this, how might they get hold of both the books, and how might they get hold of you?
So the website is hattieandfriends.co.uk. There's lots of information on the website, and you can buy from the website, and you can contact me through the website, but my email is leslie@hattieandfriends.co.uk. Or I'm very active on Twitter, which is @Hattie'sFriends.
Brilliant. Okay, I know a lot of teachers like Twitter, like to interact with Twitter, so hopefully people will reach out to you that way. Leslie, thank you ever so much. You're the first person to be interviewed in this inaugural Independent Thinking Children's Authored Book Festival that we're doing with Sue Atkins and her book club. That was a great start. Great to hear your book. Great to hear about your book. Read so well, and it's just such an important thing. Like I say, from the people in my own life who are reaching out, saying where are the books with people with difference, where the difference isn't the thing that the book is about. And I love that sort of angle, that twist to it. So thank you. Good luck with all of that.
Thank you very much.